Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We have the pleasure of being here today, and I have the pleasure to be speaking with Seena Amidi, the EMEA managing partner of Plug and Play. My name is Suneel Gokhale. I'm co-founder and general partner at Souq, which is a regional venture capital firm with team members across the UAE, Egypt, and Saudi. And thank you again. So I guess to set a bit of context, Seena, can you tell us kind of a little bit about Plug and Play, what you're doing there, so we can get a sense of that?
Sure. So Plug and Play is an investor. First and foremost, we invest $20 million from my family into startups a year, so 200 startups a year. We've also raised $200 million to do follow-on investments. And we run a consultancy to help corporations work with startups. We work with over 500 corporations around the world, people like Porsche and Mercedes and Zara, and we do that in the region as well.
Okay, so to kick off, I'm gonna start with a statement and then a question. Oftentimes in the developed world, when you talk to VCs, you talk to investors, you talk to founders and ecosystem players, a kind of a common take is that in emerging markets, including places like MENA, there's not real innovation. It's more kind of it's kind of copycatting things that have been developed in other places and bringing them there. Do you kind of agree with that, disagree, or does it even matter? Like, I have a view, but I'm curious kind of your take.
So I don't think it matters. I also think that entrepreneurs are exceptions, and in general, the exceptions come from everywhere. It doesn't matter where the founder's from, it just matters how hard they're willing to work and how lucky they get on the way. I also think not every first mover makes the money. Not every first mover is the most successful. And in many companies like DoorDash or Glovo, being a copycat might have got you an exit far faster than being the original. So I don't think it matters.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I think particularly when you travel, again, to more developed markets and you talk to folks in the ecosystem, that's kind of the first thing that comes out is, well, all you have is kind of copycats in your markets. But I think, and no real innovation, but I think for us as regional investors, we think about innovation really through the lens of just really, are you disrupting? Are you solving a problem? You take an example of Kareem, essentially a copycat of Uber, but made extremely kind of smart, significant feature changes to address local issues, and then ultimately got acquired by the very company that they're copycatting. And so, and I think to your point in terms of kind of first mover advantage, you'd rather be Google than Yahoo. I think everyone would agree to that. So I think that's interesting. Go ahead.
So just when I started at Plug and Play, so like 2006, I would intern, and my father would ask me, "Can you research the 100 companies in the building and tell me where their founders are from?" 70% of the founders were immigrants. The founders were people who had moved to the States to start something. I think in today's world, you don't have to go to California to start a company and be successful. So we're just trying to keep them here and make sure they can succeed wherever they are, and I think that's quite important to note.
Just to touch on that, so do you think that's actually kind of the infrastructure or structural changes that have come with the ability to start companies faster, more cheaply, than, let's say, 5-10 years ago? Is that something that's driving, quote unquote innovation, whatever that means to you, in kind of emerging markets that we're looking at? Is that something that's pretty significant?
So I think right now the biggest issue that we have is the B round and getting past B round. So like the one after A, it's not that hard to get a seed round and an A round. So what needs to be done is we need to match global standards from day one. We need to keep our cap tables clean. We need to make sure it's a global startup based here. It's not a local startup going global. And if we can do that and create that mindset, then what has changed in the last 10 years is We have more of an appetite as investors to invest out of California. That is cheaper to create out of California. And the world has been connected far, far more than what it was 10, 15 years ago.
Got it. So I guess now that we agree that there's no universally accepted definition of innovation, at Plug and Play, what does innovation look like to you? What are you guys, solving for? What are you guys excited about?
Our favorite thing to solve for is business development. So finding product market fit for startups is incredibly difficult, especially in B2B. So one of the things we help for is let's pitch in front of many, many people and let's see where your product can fit. So for example, it's an old idea, but predictive analytics. Right now, everyone will just call it AI, but let's say predictive analytics. Maybe you're a white guy from Ohio and you're better at selling to American retailers than you are to sell to oil and gas companies. But everyone needs predictive analytics. So what Plug and Play does is we help you sell to the perfect market for you. We help you decide if you're better for animal health or human health, because the technology is more or less the same. And what we do is we help connect you with corporations at the perfect time with the perfect person in order to speed up the process. Of course, it's not a skeleton key, but if the product works and we know the right person, then we'll help connect you.
I guess one thing I'd love your take on is, when we were chatting backstage, you talked about being here and working with governments. Because you cover Europe, which is, a market, much like the US in the sense of you generally want to keep government away from innovation. You try to kind of not have government as much involved in what you're trying to build if you're a small early stage technology company. Whereas, here in the UAE and other places in the region, like Saudi Arabia, the government has actually played quite a positive role in spurring innovation. How does that kind of change how you operate or what you're looking for? Is it connectivity to government? Is following kind of what some of these, Vision 2030 and Vision, D33 here in Dubai, these types of plans, is that kind of a driver for you in terms of spotting the next best companies in the region?
It's a very difficult question. In the US, the government is a massive backer of startups. I worked at a company that did within video search, and the United States government has the largest surveillance in the world. I mean, they have lots and lots of video, and the within video search can help them pinpoint what's going on inside of the video. We decided not to take their funding because we knew we would become a government-funded company that would just try to keep up with their demand. Now, in the region, I think a government can be a great customer. It can be a great spur on creating the company and making it stronger, but it's not like the US government where you'll never keep up with the demand. I mean, never is a big word, but it takes a long time to be big enough where you can get a second customer. I think what the region needs is the private sector. Governments are here to stay, but they have a 3-year life cycle or 4-year life cycle. You can't make money if you're only thinking 4 years ahead. So we need to get the private sector that is already here. I mean, you can see them behind us all over. We need to get them more and more involved, and the government is going to help push them to get involved in innovation. And that is what we need from the government, is maybe they need to help pay for the first pilot or pay for the first POC, and that will help us make the changes faster.
So when you say kind of more involvement of private sector, are you talking kind of multi-pronged approach? So you've got private sector, large conglomerates as kind of buyers of technology. You've got, more private sector VCs, which you have started to see more an emergence of here. A lot of them are backed by government funds, but nonetheless, CVCs, like, maybe a little more on that.
Clarity. For me, private sector needs to become customers of startups. Actually, when most corporations join a startup, they almost kill it. You don't want to be working with Porsche and Daimler. You want to work with one, and if one of them has access to everything, then they don't really like each other. So when I'm saying work with, I do mean become a customer. CVC is great, but it's great for companies that aren't going to grow in the conventional way, that aren't going to try to exit or become an IPO. There are many corporations doing a great job of investing, but you need them to become your customer in addition to their investment. Because if they just invest, sometimes the cons are bigger than the pros.
Okay, very good. Now that you're doing a lot in MENA, wanted to get a sense of you plug and play. What are the sectors where you're seeing the most innovation, where you're most excited about, where you're spending a lot of your time?
So we're very broad, but if I want to say personally rather than from broad, health in Abu Dhabi and Dubai is like the cheapest place in the world to hire. So because of the government subsidies, having PhDs in the region is actually very, very cost efficient, and you can bring them from places like Tunisia or from Pakistan, and the quality is incredible. So that is a big, big place where a lot of innovation is happening. Another big innovation area that we don't work in, that we would like to work in more, sorry, I'm pointing at my team, is the food space. At the end of the day, it is a food desert. It is a desert in some places. But we do need to process more meat. We do need to grow more and more indoor farming. And the amount of investment from outside into this area is astronomical. I mean, it's billions and billions of dollars. BRF, Tyson, everyone's investing. And we can do a lot of innovation in the new plants rather than the 50-year-old plants that you see in the rest of the world.
In terms of the hot topic that everyone wants to talk about, AI. What are you kind of seeing in the region? Are we still at the stage where it's really more about companies leveraging AI built on already existing infrastructure to kind of do whatever they do more efficiently, more cheaply, deliver products faster, or are you starting to see kind of new things being developed here in the region organically?
It's a very tough question again. AI in general is, I think, more of a trend than it's not. The world needs to invest in it, and it's going to change everything. So don't get me wrong, I do believe in it 100%. But it's not something new. I mean, it's 10 years old. It's been happening. Companies have been using it all over the place. There are many AI companies based here that are doing amazing things. Using them and actually making a difference might take a little bit more time. And it's not something that's for the region. It is something that in all of the world is doing. Efficiency is a low-hanging fruit. If you can I don't think we should cut the workforce, but if you can make your workforce 30% more efficient and more productive, that will really get you ahead of the competition. And it's not easy to find loyal, hardworking teammates. If you can make everyone who's loyal and hardworking more efficient, why not? And I think the region will benefit from that, and there's many ways that we can do it.
Okay. Very diplomatic answer. Kind of switching gears a little bit very quickly. The last couple of years have been relatively flat, at least globally, from a venture capital investment standpoint. Much slower, of course, to the 4, 5, 10 years that preceded it. As we start to kind of move, hopefully, back into some semblance of a bull market with interest rates coming down globally, how are you kind of thinking about not getting caught up in the next hype cycle? Really trying to spot great founders that are disrupting real problems in big markets versus the next hype cycle. Can you do it? Are you able to do it? Is it something you're kind of specifically thinking about?
So being an investor for a long time, it's harder to get caught in hype cycles just because, during that hype cycle, it was crazy. It was not normal. $20 million funded on PowerPoints with no product, no technology, no nothing. And people were throwing it. Money was everywhere. There are still sectors where money is everywhere. If you have the right company in Africa that does sustainability with the right founders, there are still sectors that are overfunded. I like the fact that there's less noise. I like the fact that a good company will find out if they can sink or swim in the first few rounds, because it was taking like 5 years to see if you weren't going to make it. And the noise is not great. I think what we have to do is we have to create our red flag list and not look the other way. We can't be hungry to throw the money into startups. one thing that we don't talk about as investors, investors are a type of startup, right? We have to raise money and then we have to invest. We do not get paid unless we spend the money. So you have to spend the money. So during that time, it was a terrible cycle for everyone. If you made money, great. But many people lost a lot of money during that time.
What's your like number one red flag? You mentioned red flags. Like what's something that pops out at you right away and you're like, I'm walking away, that's it.
So right now we're spending, especially in the region, I would spend a lot of time on the cap table and make sure the first investors are clean and they are not overly committed. I mean, they're going to become advisors in there for a long time, and a lot of time your first investor doesn't have the best. He doesn't want the best for the company. He wants the best for themselves, and that's what I would look for in this region.
Okay, great. Well, I think we're out of time. I'm not sure if we have time for questions, but
I don't, she's gonna get mad at us.
I know. I think yeah, she is gonna get mad at us. We can take one or two questions if there are any. Sure.
Like farming, especially like sustainable farming, has a lot of potential. My question to you is, what are your thoughts on construction, and especially deep tech and evolving technologies when it comes to construction, considering the growth of both UAE and Saudi Arabia? Because I think this is something unprecedented, like we haven't seen that before, especially with all the mega and giga projects in Saudi, like NEOM, Red Sea Development, and others. They seem to be prioritizing sustainability and deep tech. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that and see if you see a potential in that sector.
I think there's a potential. I think it's the slowest moving industry, and all of the amazing technology I've seen doesn't have the scale to keep up. So I wouldn't invest in it just because it's so slow to keep up and it's a slow industry to move.
Thank you.
Okay, I think one more question. Go ahead.
Would you invest in it?
Hi. Just a quick view from your side about the humongous world of gaming converging with Web3 and crypto.
So, in general, gaming is like a TV show. You build it, you let it fly, and you see what happens. So I think tech and gaming, we need to think what are the industries that you are most parallel to. There's a lot of gaming technologies that are worth investing in. I mean, something as simple as your phone being able to record the screen is like only 5 years old. And media today is more watching other people play than it is, creating new TV shows. I mean, Hollywood is only creating 20 TV shows this whole year, which is almost like nothing. So I would say gaming is quite interesting, but it's not a VC space. It is a different type of investment.
Okay, I think we're getting kicked off the stage here, so we better go.
Politely kicked off. Thank you so much.